Thank you, Dr. Somashila, for that kind introduction. Thank you, AOS, for the opportunity. Good evening, all. I'm here to present an unusual presentation of a silent sinus syndrome masquerading as a double elevator palsy. Appropriate informed consent was taken from the patient for the display of photographs and videos. He was a 63-year-old gentleman with a history of binocular vertical diplopia of 4 years duration. He was a hiker and he specifically mentioned difficulty in depth perception, no comorbidities, and he had consulted elsewhere and was diagnosed as a case of double elevator palsy. His ophthalmic examination revealed a best corrected visual acuity of 20/20 N6. He had left hypertropia and a head tilt to the left. On Prismba cover test, he had a left hypertropia of 16 prism diopters for near and 18 prism diopters for distance. His left hypertropia was increasing on right gaze and on the left head tilt. This was his ocular movements. Abduction was full. There was restriction of levo elevation as seen here. There was restriction of elevation as well, and restriction of dextro elevation, and there was an overaction of the inferior obliques. His depression was unremarkable. However, uh, the dextro depression was restricted. His ductions were tested as well, and there was a restriction of supraduction of the right eye. And his anterior segment and fundus examination was unremarkable. With this clinical background, our strabismologist colleagues could think of double elevator palsy that was thought of elsewhere. However, the Prismba cover test and the Parkes three-step test refuted the diagnosis. Then a diagnosis of a left superior oblique palsy was made by our strabismologist colleagues. However, the restriction in elevation was not so classical, and the patient did not have any features matching of that of the paralytic squint. Hence, we thought of, with the clinical background of an acquired vertical diplopia of 4 years duration, we could think of a thyroid-associated orbitopathy, or myositis was also one of our differential diagnoses, ocular myasthenia gravis, and also orbital floor fracture. However, the patient did not have any history of trauma in the past. So, on a second look, he had a deep superior sulcus on the right side, an increased pretarsal lid show, and on worm's eye view, there was difference in the position of both eyeballs, which was further confirmed by Hertel 6 ophthalmometry. He had a right hypoglobus of 3 millimeters, and on a closer look, his left eye had inferior scleral show, thereby increasing our suspicion towards thyroid orbitopathy. Hence, an MRI orbit was ordered, and we could see this, the obliteration of the right maxillary sinus, the sagging down of the right orbital floor, thereby displacing the right inferior rectus muscle. Also, the right orbital floor was lower in position. And in this picture, we could see the configuration of the inferior rectus muscle on the right side being different than that of the left. So based on these MRI features, a diagnosis of a silent sinus syndrome was made. A brief discussion on the silent sinus syndrome. It was first described by Soparkar et al. In 1994. It has its peak incidence in third to fifth decade of life, with an average hypoglobus measuring 3.4 millimeters. The condition is slowly progressive, attributable to the asymptomatic nature of the chronic maxillary sinusitis. The obstruction of the maxillary sinus leads to chronic hypoventilation, leading to a buildup of a negative pressure within the sinus, causing the osteolysis of the walls of the sinus. Thereby, the transmission of the negative pressure gradient across the weakened orbital floor, leading to the collapse of the orbital floor and consequently leading to inophthalmos and hypoglobus. So it can present with intermittent or constant vertical double vision as seen in our patient with or without limitation of ocular movements. And the fibrosis or loss of elasticity of the inferior rectus muscle has been hypothesized as the cause of the ipsilateral supraduction. So how will we manage these cases is that mild cases can be managed with FES alone, obviating the need for orbital floor reconstruction. However, severe cases needs an orbital floor reconstruction in addition to the drainage of FES. There has been a case report of a mild silent sinus syndrome wherein the vertical diplopia was successfully treated with prism glasses alone. There has been a case report of a non-surgical approach using hyaluronic acid gel to correct the inophthalmos after middle meatal antrostomy for silent sinus syndrome. Our patient has been asked for an ENT consultation for the treatment of chronic maxillary sinusitis and the silent sinus syndrome, and then reassess the diplopia. Usually in mild cases, the diplopia will be resolved with FES alone. So depending on the persistence of diplopia later, we would like to decide on the orbital floor reconstruction. Thus, I would like to conclude that a facial inspection with respect to symmetry was able to identify this rather unusual cause of vertical diplopia, and that the orbital imaging was able to confirm the diagnosis. Thus, this case taught me that there is more to it than meets the eye. Thank you.